All right, let's get into UConn, 19th in the AP Top 25 poll at Xavier, and the Musketeers at home at the Cintas Center. This is a really good spot for the Musketeers with everything on the line. To me, you kind of need this game with Creighton on deck on the road in Omaha. Maybe they win that game, maybe they don't. They absolutely have to win this game for their NCAA tournament hopes, especially if Liam McNeely remains out for UConn. The Huskies continue to underperform the market's expectations, beating Butler in overtime by single digits. I think just a 2-point overtime victory. McNeely means a lot to that team, especially offensively. But my question for Xavier is, well, a couple of them. Does Dalen Swain play? Has that sprained ankle? He is so good off ball. We saw that. You saw that in person at the Garden against St. John's. And then Xavier's off-ball defense ranking about average per synergy when it comes to points per possession allowed. UConn has arguably the best off-ball action with Dan Hurley's motion offense in the country, even without Liam McNeely. But UConn's drop coverage, similar to Michigan, they are most vulnerable in the paint and in the mid-range. Zach Fremantle didn't play the last time these two teams linked up. Xavier lost in overtime, did shoot over 50% from behind the arc, shot 40% against St. John's on Wednesday. Maybe we see a little bit of a dip in terms of their three-point shooting, but Fremantle, like I said, didn't suit up the first time. This is his game to get Xavier a must-win. This is everything to the Musketeers.
No, I think this is the Zach Fremantle game, especially after he really couldn't get it going too much against St. John's. Zuby Ejiofor does play some really good defense. I've been super excited by it. But yeah, this is two of the top 5 assist rate teams in the nation. Over 60% of, almost 65% of both these teams' buckets are assisted. So expect some good passing, expect some good scheming. I tend to lean towards what we've seen out of Coach
KenPom, by the
Miller.
way, just for your context, projecting this one at Xavier -2.
Right. No, and I think it should be Xavier -6.
Oh,
honestly. So I'm even more Xavier. They are leading the Big East in shot quality, and they are getting good shots. I mean, they are top 25 right now. Yeah, 23rd in the Big East in shot quality, ahead of St. John's. That game against St. John's expected to just be a 3-point loss. But again, some big wins in shot quality that we didn't really see. The first game against St. John's expected to just be a 1-point loss, expected to beat Georgetown. They lost that game, didn't look great. And then, a couple also in the non-con as well. The TCU game that they lost was expected to be a win. A couple bigger wins as well. So sometimes when they do win, SQ expects it to be even more. So 6 points against Villanova, expected to be 12. Those things, they matter. And they help bolster their SQ resume. This is a team that can shoot the three. Like, don't get it twisted. They got shooters.
Ryan Conwell, man, has one of the sweetest strokes in the country.
I mean, every single time when St. John's was trying to get back in that game, it felt like they just kept extending it. They just hit another three. And yeah, so
until they didn't.
Until they didn't. Right. I mean, there's some issues, but St. John's is playing a very different game. And I think, UConn's a little weak here. This is at home. Like you said, this Big East is a gauntlet. And yeah, they'll probably handle Georgetown when that comes around. They'll lose to Creighton, who looks like a bona fide tournament team at this point. But they'll probably, this is the toughest part of their schedule. UConn, Creighton, Georgetown, Nova. And
they have to win this game.
Yeah, but they finish Providence, DePaul, Butler, Seton, Creighton at home, Butler away, Providence at home.
But they only have, at this point, man, they only have one quad, one win.
Yeah. They need to get this. This is probably quad 2 at home with UConn, how they're performing. And I haven't really looked. And then Georgetown's also, and the Creighton's a big game, and I don't think they win that game. So
yeah, I agree.
You're right. They got to get this one done. The others got to look good. I mean, I haven't really looked to see how they're doing in terms of, my favorite bubble resource over our friends Bart Torvik. But yeah, they're right beneath that bubble. They're like half a game below the bubble. So this is every game kind of counts right now for Xavier. And coming off of a big win against Marquette is huge, makes the season, but you can't give that up here against UConn. Essentially, losing this game would be giving that win back, in my opinion. So, got to hold ground here.
So with the market here, I go back and forth on this one. Xavier could very well get hammered on open if they open at a pick or -1.
Yes.
And maybe the market won't care too much whether Swain plays or not. You're talking about a desperate Xavier team at home, really good home court advantage coming off of a brutal overtime loss. Maybe they're going to be a little bit just in terms of like you face a physical St. John's team, maybe the energy, not that it won't show up at home at a good home spot. Will they wear down in the second half?
Overtime game. Yeah.
Yeah. I just worry about the Swain injury. He is massive at both ends of the floor. I have a little bit of pause backing Xavier if Swain doesn't.
I think you want to see how he's doing. Yeah, I don't think you want to jump in overnight on that on its own by itself, unless there's like reports that he's doing okay. Because you'll get a 1.5 difference, and that's probably enough for him. I don't think he's worth. There's very few players worth more than 2 points in a college basketball game. And again, maybe I would say there's definitely not more than 2 players per team ever that are worth that, right? There might be like the point guard on a mid-major team, and it's a real downgrade to the next guy, and so it's not necessarily 2 points that he's worth. It's just the downgrade that's like -1 and +1, right? So
good comp last week was Barnhizer when he was reportedly rumored to miss the game per some random Northwestern fan. He ends up playing, but that line literally moved 2 points when this random fan misreported that Barnhizer wasn't going to play, and then he did.
Yeah. It's funny. I mean, he's one of those guys that literally does impact the game that much. Where 2 points is probably fair. Maybe a little bit of the market overreaction. Maybe it should have been 1.
Yeah, I was agreeing with you though. Best player, second best player on Northwestern, worth 1.5, 2 points to the spread.
That's it. And maybe Cooper Flagg, Janai Broom surpassed 3 points, 4 points. But even then, because you want to know what? Auburn's so good, it's unique. Cooper Flagg might be the only 3-point-plus player in Division I right now at the Power 5 level. I would say it's very different at the other levels because schematically teams can fall apart if they don't have the one guy on the team who can break the press, right? And so, it might not be worth it to the spread, but it might be worth it to that game. And that's different because, the spread is calculated so mathematically and honestly, how a team handles the press isn't super baked in there. It's a little bit more just these efficiencies that account for everything. So that's what you try to beat. I have a graphic saved on my computer that's, are you smarter than a Ken Palm? And it's kind of true. You're battling against these efficiencies that are really good. They're really, really good. And in the large sample, they win. And at the -110, they profit. And if you were going to take +110s on them, you'd be silly to say no. But you can, if you pick your spots, if you learn how these models work and you learn where it might misjudge some efforts or some luck, that's where you can really, prey on a couple of these, 3 to 5 point edges. You're not talking anything bigger than that because they are that sharp of lines.